was there last night. He was out there.
And I was just talking off the air with you guys about how the Coliseum, that's a place I really want to go and watch a game. So I'm curious to what Grayson has to say about that atmosphere last night. Because watching from the couch, it looked electric.
It's definitely different. It's definitely a different NFL venue. Scott Grayson's grades are up. He also got inside the locker room video footage of, we talked to Scott after every game about what's it like in that locker room. It looked a lot different in that locker room, Scotty, after last night than we've seen after some of these other games where you said you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah, it absolutely did, and it felt a lot different. The closest I could come to would be the win that they got in London over the Jaguars, and they were blasting music and dancing around. It was even different last night, but what I really took away from there was I just felt like this team was acting the body language you try to read, like maybe it got a little bit of its swagger back, but it means nothing if they don't come out and do something similar again this week against the Texans.
When you went in there last night and I heard Wendell Smallwood kind of make a reference that they played with more, I can't remember the phrase that he used, but he was talking to Derek Gunn after the game about, why with Foles in there. Lane Johnson said, he gets the ball. Like, when you talk to some of these guys, what's the theme that you notice about why the team appears to be different with Nick Foles?
I think the biggest thing is because they know it's their backup quarterback, and every guy has to kind of do their job a little bit tougher. Carson's not there to kind of clean up the mess, and I think that's kind of the way this team is played. Like, well, he's the great Carson Wentz. He'll take care of it. You can't do that. And this team needs to play with Wentz the way that they've been playing with Foles when he's been in there. Now, I mean, they weren't great for Foles earlier in the year when Foles started the first 2 games of the season either. But, last night they did their jobs, and I think they all knew they had to buckle up and pin it up. And I don't know how much of it was due to Foles and how much of it was given the sense of urgency in the situation. I mean, lose last night, and you can really forget about talking about the playoffs at all.
Scott, you wrote about the Eagles embracing the underdog role once again. Was that kind of a prominent theme out there, again, with them winning last night?
Yeah, you got Lane Johnson and Chris Long being asked about the underdog masks, and they're kind of talking about maybe pulling them out again. Look, it worked for these guys last year. Why not go back to that well? And in that article, the picture I used was Jordan Matthews holding up an underdog mask that he must have borrowed from a fan out there. Look, that's kind of the identity this team's willing to try to embrace again. And at this point, I think embracing any kind of identity is better than they've had all season, which has been everybody asking, what is the identity of this team? So I think perhaps that might be something this team can kind of build around, and that's kind of the sense I got talking to them after the game last night.
Scott, another player here that had a monster game last night is Alshon Jeffery, who, where's he been? We've been talking a lot about Wentz consistently going to Ertz. Alshon often missed on a lot of plays. Last night, not missed very often. You gave him a grade of an A. So what did you see live there last night from Foles and Alshon Jeffery?
What I saw was, to me, it's not where has Alshon Jeffery been. It's why haven't they gone to Alshon Jeffery?
Right.
Look, he just showed you last night what he can do, what his skill set is. Nobody can jump and get the ball at its highest point better than he can, which is why I continually ask myself, why do they not try to throw a fade in the end zone to him? And hopefully they learned a little bit about what Alshon can do last night, because you haven't really seen Alshon have those kind of opportunities in the passing game. A lot of it has been, some screens or some back shoulder throws. This was him leaping and making plays. I mean, I don't know how many of you thought this, but when Foles let the one ball go and it was Alshon and Nelson Aguilar behind the defense, I thought these two are going to fight over it and it's going to hit the ground as an incomplete pass. It was like at the last second, Aguilar noticed it was Alshon and was like, I'm not going to be able to outleap him for this ball. That's his. And Jeffery caught it. I think that's what Jeffery brings to this team, and take advantage of what his skills are. Use him. He's got that height. He's got that strength. That's what his bread and butter is. And I'm hoping, and I was just thinking last night, I hope they're taking notes on what he can do, because they have not used him in that way before. And I think that's what we're going to have to see, see where they go from in the future with that.
Scott Grayson's grades are up at 97.3 ESPN.com. we had Billy Osborne on earlier. He was a little critical of Peterson, even in a win. That he took that shot, they threw the interception, the fourth down call. Not that he went for it, just the play. What'd you see from Peterson last night? Because a different quarterback, they come out on top, and some people would say, man, he had a good game plan last night. What did you think of Peterson?
Yeah, I thought overall his game plan was good. I liked the balance. And balance doesn't always dictate victory, but I liked that he was going to the run. And part of the run and going to it is dictated by the fact that you have the lead. You're trying to milk some clock. I would have rather see them be a little bit more aggressive at trying to get first downs and not let the Rams even have a chance to get the ball back. But they were content just to run clock. But I agree, that fourth down, I like the idea of going for it. I like the idea of being aggressive. It's what helped this team last year. But my problem was, let alone the play, the personnel. You got to get Darren Sproles on the field. Why isn't he on the field in third down? Just because you have to account for his dynamic coming out of the backfield. And I would have rather seen them. That was a long 1.5 to 2 yards. I would have rather seen him do something through the air as opposed to on the ground in that situation. But, overall, I thought Peterson called a better game than he has lately, and perhaps that was fueled by the fact that plans.
Jim Schwartz, he's been criticized. The defense has been criticized, but maybe, could be their best overall effort of the year considering the opponent.
Oh, there's no doubt. What they did to Todd Gurley was impressive. I thought that they really bottled him up well. They tried to keep away some of those running lanes. Particularly early in the game, they dropped him for a loss that helped set the tone early on and forced that 3 and out. That then ultimately the Eagles went down and scored on their first drive, even though it was only 3 points, better than nothing. And I thought that defense, again, magnificent. Look at who he's dealing with at defensive back. And even LeBlanc at one point went down. So, it's the fact that they're doing what they're doing with those guys out there. And I don't know what McVay was thinking and why he didn't challenge those DBs a little bit more. Part of that was because the pass rush was kind of getting in there a little bit better than it has been in the past. But I was impressed with Schwartz and that defense last night. I really thought it did a really good job of helping them get that win and forcing turnovers.
By the way, you gave Schwartz and Peterson an A.
A lot of A's to be had from last night's game. Now, Scott, Corey Graham, Rasul Douglas, Avant Maddox returning. He played very well, but Rasul Douglas, 14 tackles. Corey Graham, huge interception late in the third quarter. So I want you to touch on really all the guys in the secondary. You gave A's to Avant Maddox, Corey Graham, and Rasul Douglas. So what'd you see from those guys that all of them had big plays and overall very good games?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that interception by Avant Maddox was so huge. I don't know how he managed to keep that from hitting the ground. And that play was big. He plays with a lot of confidence, and a lot of guys afterwards, different players were talking about how intelligent, how smart he is. That was the third different position he's played this season. He's a young guy, still trying to get used to the speed of the game in this league, and he did a great job playing out there at corner. So that was huge. You look at a guy like Corey Graham. Sometimes Corey Graham makes me scratch my head and want to pull my hair out. But, last night then coming up with that interception on that bizarre play where Goff went down, got up, and I don't know what he was doing. But Graham came up with it, and that set him up for a huge touchdown to extend the lead. And then you talk about Rasul Douglas. I think this guy is continuing to get better and better every week. And I think he's playing with more and more confidence, and rightfully so. I think he's one of the better open field tacklers in that secondary, and he's shown it at times. He can come up and make a tackle for a loss if they try to throw something out in the flat. He did a good job covering last night, I thought. And so I've been impressed with Rasul Douglas's emergence. He has really been, it looks like, picking the ear of Malcolm Jenkins, or Jenkins has sought out Rasul Douglas to try to tutor him a little bit. But those two have seemed to have been kind of working together, and I think we're seeing some of the effects on the field.
Talking with Scott Grayson, you were there last night, and obviously big crowd. Was it a big Eagle contingent out there?
I didn't think it was as big as the year before. Last year was so noticeable, but last night, in key moments in the game, and when the Eagles went up by 17, boy, you knew it. You could tell. There was a definitive Eagles crowd there. I was kind of surprised because I didn't think with the way that this season has gone, as many of them would have gone out there, but they did. And a lot of them probably had those plans booked in advance.
Yeah, Scott, I saw at one point Chris Long, like asking the crowd, like, get up, let's go, get louder, like you would do at a home game when you're on defense, like to get your crowd going. So it's hard to tell in that stadium because it's just that one big, bowl out there. You don't really get to see, when you have the two different tiers, a lot of times you can see like one contingent of Eagles fans in one different area. But it sounded like they did travel pretty well. And then, obviously, they get to win for the second year in a row out there in L.A. They beat the Rams. And, hey, now all of a sudden this game on Sunday becomes very different, very important.
Yeah, and I think Doug Peterson did a great job today of taking all the question and uncertainty out of there by saying and naming Nick Foles as starter. So that, that's going to – now with Wentz not going on IR, obviously that's going to continue to be a topic of discussion. When do you bring him back, if you bring him back? And look, Wentz is a competitor. I'm sure he's going to be going to Peterson saying, I'm ready, let me go. But it's Foles this week, and if they win again, that'll bring up a very interesting question as to who starts going into Washington.
All right, we'll find out a lot more on this game coming up all week long. Eagles, Texans. The Eagles stay relevant for at least another week. Check out all of Grayson's grades right now at 973ESPN.com. Get all of his locker room interviews and the underdog mentality. Is it back? It's all right now at 973ESPN.com. Thanks, Scott.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.